Hi there, and welcome to another edition of Wise Woman Healing. I am your host, Melissa. And I wanted to talk to you today about the Old Farmer's Almanac and the Farmer's Almanac. And why is there two, and what is the difference, and what's going on? Well, here is something that is happening. Let me show you the difference between the two of them. The Farmer's Almanac started in 1818. That's a 2023 one. The Old Farmer's Almanac started in 1792. And as you can see, here's a picture of Benjamin Franklin on the cover, not because he started the Old Farmer's Almanac, but because he was the inspiration behind it because of Poor Richard's Almanac. Okay. So Benjamin Franklin was a prolific writer. He had a printing press. He wrote the Silence Do-Good letters. If you saw the movie National Treasure, you'll know that from that movie that, they had all these codes that they were using embedded in the Silence Do-Good letters and da-da-da-da-da. He also did, like I said, his almanac, because pretty much almost everybody, I'm not going to say everybody, but almost everybody back then was a farmer on some level. Jefferson, Washington, they all needed to grow their own food. And, well, maybe they didn't need to, but they did. Okay, but I think maybe they needed to. I mean, they had large estates that they were managing, and they grew the fibers to make their own clothing. They grew the food to feed themselves and their slaves. And it was like the top thing that people did back then. I mean, you had coopers, and you had, people who sold salt and people who raised pork and everything like that. But my point is, if you were a farmer back in the day, even, in my childhood before the internet came along and apps and everything, I know, can you imagine a life without apps? My grandparents would listen to the Farm Report, Paul Harvey, and the Weather Report on the radio every day, and you better not make any noise while those shows are on. So they all had, I grew up seeing the Farmer's Almanac, but never really reading it because I grew up in the suburbs. So here, both of them have a hole in them, and that's so you can hang it on a nail in the barn or the outhouse, wherever you do your reading. And so the Farmer's Almanac the Old Farmer's Almanac was first, 1792. And then a gentleman came along, and he decided that he wanted to make his own Farmer's Almanac. Okay, I moved the camera so I could see my notes. And it says, let's see. Well, let's talk about Benjamin Franklin a little bit more. Benjamin Franklin was one of America's first and foremost famous almanac writers. From 1732 to 1758, he published a yearly booklet called Poor Richard's Almanac. Franklin's almanac was witty, moral, and full of short, sharp proverbs like early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. So the philosophy for the longest time, except for the last 20 to 30 years, 40 years, has been hard work is good for you. So he combined astronomy, weather predictions, and homespun wisdom, creating something both practical and philosophical, the same spirit the Old Farmer's Almanac would later carry on. Robert B. Thomas founded the Old Farmer's Almanac in 1792. Franklin had already passed away in 1790, but Thomas admired him deeply, especially how Franklin's almanac blended science, common sense, humor, and moral reflection. So Thomas modeled his new almanac on Franklin's approach. Over time, readers and publishers began to associate Franklin's face with the very idea of the American almanac. So this has been around, like I said, since 1792. That's a long time. So why would Ben Franklin's portraits be on the Old Farmer's Almanac? By the mid-1800s, Franklin's portrait had become a kind of mascot for traditional American wisdom and ingenuity. He wasn't directly involved, but his image symbolized practical intelligence, the scientific study, or scientific curiosity Franklin was famous for, folk wisdom, his pithy sayings and advice, founding values, thrift, discipline, and respect for nature's order. So the publishers of the Old Farmer's Almanac began using his image as a symbol in the almanac spirit itself, and it stuck. And his picture is on the cover to this very day, as you'll see. Now, I really want to encourage you to go out and purchase the Old Farmer's Almanac. If you're a homesteader, if you're an herbalist, if you're a healer, if you're a city gardener, anything that you're doing, so please support this, because there is, it's cute, it's funny. There's the Zodiac Man is in there telling you when to try for things and plant. This is okay, look at this. The difference between 2020, 2025. This is 2026 on top, 2025 on the bottom. So the publishers, I contacted them and they wrote back. That's so cool. So Man of the Signs, they said that they wanted to do a better quality of paper. And I think it was even cheaper for some reason. And so it's a little bit thicker. It's sturdier. So if you don't have the almanac and you're into plants and healing and growing gardens and stuff like that, it'll change your life. It'll change your life. So the reason why I'm doing this is this one is they're going to stop publishing it starting in January. No more Farmer's Almanac. This one, the Old Farmer's Almanac, will keep going. No. Yes. So buy this one. Look at the difference of the covers. So this one's bright orange. Okay. This one is schmancier. It has scrolling and look at that. So here's the 22. I mean, the cover's the same year to year. Open on the front. Okay. That's the one you want. So I'm gonna keep talking. If you're still here, thank you. Please like and subscribe and help the channel to grow. So every year around late September, so one book appears quietly on newsstands and in feed stores all across America, the Old Farmer's Almanac. It's been around for over 200 years, and believe it or not, it still sells millions of copies. Let's see. This is why every herbalist, homesteader, gardener, and folk healer should have one on hand each and every year. And what makes these two famous almanacs a little different. I'm going to talk about both of them. I'm just going to talk about both of them, even though you can't get the other one. Before the internet, before weather apps, and long before social media gardening tips, folks relied on almanacs. These humble little books were the lifeline of early America. Farmers planned their planting and harvests by them. Herbalists timed their harvests for potency. Healers watched the moon for when to gather roots or make tinctures. The moon cycle that you use to make your herbal remedies affects your herbal remedies. I didn't make it. I didn't make that rule. I didn't make it up. It just does. Okay. So the almanac isn't just a calendar. It's a teacher, a weather forecast, and a record keeper rolled into one. So the Old Farmer's Almanac is the older of the two, first published in 1792 in New Hampshire by Robert B. Thomas. It is the one with the yellow cover. We already talked about that. And the hole punched in the corner so you can hang it on a nail in your kitchen. Thomas believed nature followed divine order, that there was a rhythm between the heavens, the earth, and the farmer's work. This idea is something that has been popular within Christianity, monastic healers, and the like for centuries. Let's see. That there was a rhythm between the heavens, the earth, and the farmer's work. So he also included in his almanac weather predictions based on solar cycles and planetary motion, moon phases, best planting and harvesting days, home remedies, proverbs, and folk wisdom, even recipes and jokes to lighten the winter months. It was practical and poetic, a blend of science, scripture, and folk knowledge. That's why it feels almost timeless today. Then in 1818, a man named David Young in Maine started a rival publication called simply The Farmer's Almanac. Orange cover, no old in the title. I want old in the title. His version leaned a bit more on mathematical formulas and long-range weather predictions using secret algorithms based on sunspots, tides, and planetary positions. Over time, this one became known for its bold, sometimes quirky forecasts, like predicting snow in Florida or record-breaking storms in years in advance. So while the Old Farmer's Almanac had a more homestead and folklore flavor, the Farmer's Almanac was the science-forward practical cousin. Both, though, have always shared one goal: to help everyday people live in tune with the natural world. And this is basically what this channel is about, is that, we have forgotten that we are part of nature. And there's people out there who think people don't belong in nature, shouldn't be foraging, da 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 da. But the truth of it is there's not enough animals to eat everything that's out there. We're not stealing from the animals if we go forage for natural remedies and food. It's okay. When God created everything and he created man, he created us in a garden. Okay? So we belong in nature. We have every right to be in nature. So let's see. Why should you still buy one every year? So why should a modern herbalist, farmer, or backyard gardener still grab one of these every year? Let's break it down. Weather wisdom that you can hold. So these almanacs offer long-range forecasts that, while not always perfect, they help you plan planting, harvesting, and preservation methods months in advance, months ahead. You'll see trends, wetter summers, late frosts, early droughts, that can make or break your crops or herbal harvests. For those of us who garden or harvest or heal by the moon, waxing for growth, waning for root crops, or drying herbs, the almanac lays it all out clearly. It's an ancient rhythm you can literally live by. Natural health and folk remedies. Both almanacs keep bits of traditional wisdom alive, from honey tonics and vinegar cures to herbal salves and seasonal eating. They remind us that healing begins with the land, not the lab. Cultural and ancestral continuity. Buying the almanac every year is more than habit. It's a tradition that connects you to centuries of people who lived by observation, faith, and stewardship. It's like owning a little piece of living history. So, offline knowledge. Guys, I cannot emphasize enough not to rely on digital anything. The stuff disappears from the internet. Stuff is changed. Definitions of terms and phrases change, and it's all manipulated. I'm not saying that there's never been a book written that didn't try to manipulate people, but I'm saying paper is king, okay? When Wi-Fi is out, your garden still grows. The almanac still works. It's small, weatherproof, and runs entirely on candlelight and curiosity. Candlelight and curiosity, it's all you need. So you can't go wrong with either, except for this one. It's not going to be around anymore. So I guess I shouldn't talk about it anymore. Really, you couldn't go wrong with either. I had a preference for this one because this one did have things in it that I wasn't really interested in. And I mean, it wasn't bad. There wasn't anything in it that was bad or offensive. I just really enjoyed the Old Farmer's Almanac better. It was more folklory. I am not super big into science. I mean, I understand many scientific concepts that were taught to me in school, but I just am not, I'm not going to open up my quantum physics books and I'll open up this. I'm very interested and committed to folk healing, folk tradition, folk everything. And I'm, when there used to be a time when science and Christianity were working well together, despite, the whole thing with the Roman Catholic Church and Galileo and his, him being poisoned, everything like that. Truly, Orthodox Christianity, let me go talk about that. In the early centuries, especially within the Byzantine Empire, what we call science was seen as part of theology's natural companion. They were like two sides of the same coin. There was no rivalry between them like there is now. This is kind of silly that there's a rivalry between them now. And I am part of that rivalry. I admit it. I will always lean towards theological natural remedies. That's my thing. So monastics studied astronomy, medicine, and botany because understanding the natural order was considered a way of glorifying the Creator. So when you look at the Mazzaroth or the Healing Man, okay, and because there is astronomy within both. There's astronomy within both of the almanacs. I'm going to have to get the 2025. And you've heard me talk about the Healing Man. Okay. So that's what they're talking about, is the monastics studied astronomy. So it's not bad. It's not unchristlike. It's not, you're not being a witch or a pagan if you look at the stars and study astronomy. Okay. There's a lot of weird things that have come up in Christianity over the years. And separating ourselves from the natural world has been an unfortunate consequence of that only science is righteous. So if you want to get into folk healing, traditional Christian folk healing, you're going to study astronomy, you're going to study medicine, and you're going to study botany. It's all tied together. Figures like St. Basil the Great and St. Gregory of Nyssa wrote treatises on nature, medicine, and cosmology, not as secular studies, but as praise of divine wisdom manifest in creation. Even St. Hildegard of Bingen, who was Western but pre-schism, fits with the same sacramental science worldview. Nature reveals God's healing patterns, even in rocks, animals, water, ingredients for your kitchen. They all embody God's healing. So the church never opposed science per se. It was the disenchantment of science in the modern era, when it was divorced from faith, that changed how people perceived this relationship. So if you're not using an old farmer's almanac in your folk or herbal healing, herbal remedy making, growing your herbs, harvesting your herbs, all the stuff, knowing when to heal, knowing when not to heal, the correspondences, everything like that, I personally think that you are really cutting yourself out of a huge chunk of what it means to be a healer or an herbalist, growing herbs, because it's all connected. It's all part of God's creation. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a pagan or an atheist. God's creation is in harmony with all its components. It all reveals the Creator. It all comes together to heal. It's undeniable. So I don't even know how an atheist is a healer. But that being said, I'm also going to say, I'm going to take a stand today and say, obviously, I am not a liberal. If you didn't know that, I am a conservative Christian traditional folk healer. I believe that there are two genders. I believe that a man and a woman should get married, and if they can, have children and raise them. And that if the woman doesn't want to work, it's okay. She's still contributing to society. Like, I am a conservative Christian. If that bothers you, If you can't stand the fact that those are my values, then this is not the channel for you. And it's okay. I mean, not everything is for everyone. And I wish you well, but I'm not an atheist. I am not a pagan. I am not going to pray to pagan gods and goddesses. I am not going to cast spells on people. I'm not going to teach you how to hex people, all that stuff. I'm not doing that. My faith is who I am, and there is only one God, and Jesus is his son, and Mary was his mother, is his mother. She's still alive in heaven. So just doing a little bit of housekeeping today while I sit here and talk about the almanac. So go ahead and help support. They're the only ones left now. They're the only ones left now standing against the tide of digital stuff. If you say that you hate digital stuff, then go out and purchase an almanac. Okay? All right. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please like and subscribe and help the channel to grow. Sorry for all the wobbles. All right. Bye-bye.